Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place we discuss all things USMNT y la selección mexicana. My name's Adrian. Joining me once again on this Friday afternoon is my co-host in Tocayo, Adrian. Adrian, what's good, man?
Broski, I'm just glad that it's Friday. Was even though I was on vacation, it was kind of a tough week at work. Those 2 days that I had to work, when I was back in the office, they were kind of tough. But I'm just glad that it's Viernes Botanero, that I get to see some ligamx, and I get to make another pod episode with you, man.
There you go, man. Yeah, man, this one's going to be an exciting one. We're going to be discussing Mexico, man. Mexico, who, we particularly a position I'll get into right now shortly, but Mexico that we know, we were talking before we started recording this pod, that Mexico currently does not have many players in Europe. I think it was 7 in the top 10 leagues. There's not a lot of depth to La Selección Mexicana at this point, not a lot of quality of depth at least. But I think what today's topic is left back. I think left back is one of the positions where there is surprisingly a good amount of depth, and a depth that a lot of young depth that of young players that are coming up and can come into that role, grow into that role as other older players that are currently taking that position, kind of phase out. But yeah, topic of today's episode, man, left back from Mexico. Something that in recent years has kind of been a question mark, kind of owned by Arteaga or Jesus Gallardo or others. But I think this is, like I said, the position where 4 or 5 names come up when you think left back for Mexico, all of which are quality or up and coming. That could easily slip into that position for Mexico. But yeah, man, why don't you give us kind of a rundown of what that situation looks like for Mexico right now for the left back position?
Sure. I mean, as you know, since 2018, when Jesus Gallardo had a breakthrough year with Pumas, he has essentially commandeered that position for eltri during 2018 World Cup, 2022, and just most recently on the last tournaments that eltri has participated on. Coaches from Osorio to all the way to Tata Mezquino and jimmylozano, they've all decided to choose Jesus Gallardo over any other player that is out there and eligible for el tri. And, I would say that between 2018 and 2022, there wasn't that much competition for Jesus Gallardo to, not be considered the starter for that specific position. You had, players like Gerardo Arteaga and Omar Campos coming up. They were super young. Arteaga, had just moved to Genk, and we didn't know if he was gonna be, a really good player, or I guess constantly getting featured by Genk. And Omar Campos, was still like 17, 18, making a breakthrough in Liga MX. And more recently, now on 2023 or after 2022, all the fans, including myself, have started to question whether Jesus Gallardo is the best player for that position. Hell, even in 2022, I think we all agreed that it was time for Gerardo Arteaga to take the role. Unfortunately, when Arteaga was given the opportunity, he didn't, had the best performances out there. The most recent one that I can think of is against the USMNT, where he got a red card. So, even when he was given the opportunity, he didn't perform as expected. And unfortunately for Omar Campos, he just didn't settle in Santos as we all expected. We all thought he was going to either move to a bigger team in Mexico or go and start playing, or I guess attract the attention of European teams. But he just struggled with Santos after maybe couple of seasons, showing, I guess, the sparks of his talent. And, nowadays he just moved to LAFC. So I think it's going to be more difficult for him to either move to the Europe or, be in contention for that specific position. And just to echo the comments that the comments that you used to start this podcast was the depth that Mexico has right now. If you look at the entire roster for left backs or eligible players for this role, there isn't much excitement, to be honest with you. All of them play in Liga MX, with the exception of Omar Campos, right? Because he plays in MLS now. But it isn't like the old, previous years where you had Gerardo Arteaga playing in Henk, and you have very interesting prospects coming up on the ranks. So this is, I think we have ignored this specific situation for Mexico, or this specific position for Mexico in the last 8 years, all because of Jesus Gallardo. And whether we like it or not, he tends to perform with Mexico. He tends to have decent tournaments with Mexico. So that's probably the reason why we have overlooked this position. But I think if we don't pay attention to it today, it's going to become a weakness for 2026.
Yeah, I guess what I was referencing to about the, I guess sounded kind of excited in the beginning of referencing to the left back position, but what I was referencing, I guess my excitement towards it was there. Yeah, Jesus Gallardo's kind of if he goes down, you're thinking who do you have right away to replace him, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
like you said, he's been a constant rock there for the last 5, 6, 7 years for Mexico, for Monterrey, for Pumas, not for Pumas. He was at Pumas, right? Yeah, for Pumas.
Yeah, started at
Um,
Pumas.
but there's a couple names that go are being thrown out there for possible left back replacements. Jonathan Gomez, Jogo, who played for the
Mm-hmm.
USMNT, who still hasn't made a commitment fully. I mean, he's played for the USMNT, but he can still make a file one time transfer. He's an exciting prospect. Gerardo Arteaga, okay, he just moved back from Europe, and he's not in the best position. He's going to be playing backup to Jesus Gallardo there in Monterrey, but he was decent at Genk. We still don't understand. We're going to make a video as to discussing all these Mexicans coming back to ligamx. I obviously wasn't the best move for him, but he's kind of a toss up. He usually plays more better than not for Mexico. And then obviously Omar Campos, as you said, he was a prospect, but he's kind of like I believe he's going to probably be filtered out as well by playing abroad in LAFC. But then you have what's his name, Alonso, the guy that plays for Pachuca,
Yes.
who's also just 22, right? I mean, Joe goes 21, Gerardo Tiega's 25. Yeah, it's a problem, but there's a lot of young prospects coming up that I think still aren't at their peak, but can transition into that role by 2026. But yeah, I mean, are there any you want to particularly talk about or go
Well, I do
specifically?
want to say that I appreciate your optimism, man, because I have this bias of if they play in Liga MX, they're not necessarily the best option. But once you look at the entire picture, you don't have that many options, anyways.
Yeah, who else is
Um,
there in Europe? I mean,
exactly, yeah, I totally agree. Like I did an extensive search of Mexican players in Europe, whether if it was on a La Liga Dos or Bundesliga 2 or what second division on any of the top 10 leagues. There aren't any left backs out there that you can choose from, right? Most of them are like offensive players or center backs, right? You don't have that many wing, I guess, fullbacks
except Jogo.
on exactly, with the exception of Jogo, but he's a dual national, and so it's kind of hard to say whether or not he's going to go back to Mexico, well, choose Mexico over USMNT, anyways. But I do appreciate your optimism because I think that keeps us leveled and allows the PPG family to make a better a more educated assumption of what we want to present here. But on the names that I put on the list, I think the most exciting ones for me are Jonathan Gomez, who is playing for Real, well, not Real Sociedad. He's playing for
Mirandes or
yes,
Mirandes.
Mirandes, second
Yeah,
division in La Liga Dos. Uh, so he has started for 15 games out of 24, and he has been substituted in six, three on the bench, no suspensions, zero injuries. I think that's solid, dude.
yeah.
I think this is perhaps the most exciting talent that Mexico has within its sight or within its scope. With the exclusion that this is dual national, and we still don't know if he's going to commit to whether to the USMNT or Mexico. But I think Jonathan Gomez is perhaps the most exciting talent right now out there for that specific position. The second one that I think we should keep a close eye on is Daniel Alonso Aceves, who was with Real Oviedo before he went to Pachuca. Then he went to Pachuca and he got loaned out to Chicago Fire, where he had, a decent uh, season with Chicago Fire last season. I mean, most of the time he was benched, But he had, out of 30 matches, he had I guess 9 starts as a starting player, substituted in 11, 10 on the bench, and no injuries and no suspensions. So, I mean, he got some minutes here and there. He's only 21. He's, I think, starting with Pachuca now. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's, you know, if he's chosen to be like the next upcoming talent in La Liga MX. And the last two that I have, which are these are new players. I wouldn't say that these are newcomers. Um, Two players that we have seen extensively in Liga MX. The first one is Jesus Angulo, who plays as a left back for Tigres, although we all know that his best position is as a left center back, not as a left back. But he's an option that maybe Jimmy Lozano has to explore. Jesus Angulo is known for more for his defensive prowess rather than for his offensive skills. But I think overall he's a decent left back. He reminds me a lot of Torres Nilo, and I think Torres Nilo was very underestimated and underused in eltri. And I hope that this isn't the case for Jesus Angulo. The other one I have is Kevin Alvarez, and the only reason why I'm not too excited about Kevin Alvarez is because, yes, we all know that he's a very good player. He is talented, fast. He is prone to go to the offensive. He still needs to grow defensively speaking. But the fact that he went from Pachuca to America, um, at least for me, for my biased opinion, right? I just find it very hard to jump on the bandwagon of Kevin Alvarez just because I don't think he's going to go to Europe anytime soon. You know, he's not necessarily a undisputed starting 11 player at America. And the fact that he just decided to go to a bigger club in Liga MX for a higher fee just essentially puts a nail of his coffin that he most likely will not go to Europe anytime soon.
So you brought up three key points that I kind of want to discuss further with you, but I'll zero in on the most recent one that you mentioned here. You mentioned Kevin Alvarez, who we know is primarily a right back for La Selección and for America. If you're considering Kevin Alvarez as a possible replacement for left back, can't you consider Julian Araujo, who plays right back in Europe, as a possible replacement for left back?
You are totally right, but the only reason why I'm considering Kevin Alvarez as a left back replacement is because on the right back you have two solid players to fulfill that position, right? If you look at the left back, you don't really have that many established players, and if your intention is to phase out someone like Jesus Gallardo, who, albeit he's not necessarily old, but he's 29 years old, so you know that he's if not at the peak of his game, he's definitely on the downhill of the peak of that of his talents, right? So again, if you look at the entire roster of eligible left backs that you have, it's for, at least for me, it's difficult to name three that you for sure are solid replacements as left backs. I think on the other side, on the right back, you have Julian Araujo, as you mentioned, which I think should be the starter now that Jorge Sanchez is back in Cruz Azul. You have Jorge Sanchez, but on top of that, I mean, you can go and look at Ricardo Chavez from San Luis, who is a very solid player. You can look at this guy from Dundee. It's Alan Portales, I think.
Yeah.
That guy also, he plays as a right back, solid. He plays in Scotland for Dundee FC. He can also play as a center back. So there are a few names on the picking order that you can choose ahead of Kevin Alvarez on the right side.
Yeah, and Antonio Portales.
Antonio Portales, here we go. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's more quality, I guess, on the right back side than left back. You mentioned phasing out Jesus Gallardo. I've been watching Monterrey this season. We're only in Clausura. I mean, we're only in the third match or fourth match now this weekend. Jesus Gallardo hasn't played, if I recall correctly. Is he injured? I can't recall his situation.
Yes, he sustained an injury, I believe, either at the end of last season or during preseason for this Clausura 2024. He had something to do with his knee. I don't think he underwent surgery. He's just been going to rehab, and he has returned to regular practice. But that just goes to show that he isn't that young anymore, and it's taking him a longer time to recover, right? And another thing that also local pundits have said in Monterrey is that the staff has noticed that he is struggling, more and more to have that, kind of box to box ability, right? He was known for being a left back who can also play as a left wing back or as a left wing, and essentially run the entire pitch from top to bottom. And during last season, they realized that he's becoming slower just because of age, and he is struggling even more to to retain his stamina throughout the 90 minutes. So there isn't a reason why. I mean, it isn't necessarily performance based. The reason why he's not playing right now is more because of an injury. But even at his club, they are realizing that maybe his best years are past him.
Okay, yeah, and you reference phasing him out. He's still only 29, like you said. I mean, that compared to the other guys, he's old. He's an old fart. But I mean, 29 isn't crazy old for a defender. Maybe a little bit older on the other side for a wing backs, right? But you think it's 100% time to phase him out? I mean, when we're talking about Jesus Gallardo, who is part of a Monterrey, back four that just 2 seasons ago led in very few goals, accumulated 41 points, always top two or three, if not super leader in the last 4 or 5 seasons, torneos cortos. He's still. I mean, he might not be performing at the level of box to box as he was, but he's adapted his game to be a reliable left back for Monterrey and for La Selección. Are we counting him out too early?
I don't think so. What I'm trying to say here is that we have to realize that by the time 2026 comes, he's gonna be 30, 31 years old, right? And he probably won't be at the peak of his game. So why not try to get ahead of that specific challenge and find a replacement? I mean, there's a reason why Monterrey brought Gerardo Arteaga back,
Right.
and it's because they see the problem with Jesus Gallardo not being able to run the entire pitch all 90 minutes. And they are trying to mitigate that risk by bringing in Gerardo Arteaga and potentially using Jesus Gallardo as a left wing rather than as a left back. So to me, it's just a no-brainer. I mean, if I was jimmylozano, I will be paying attention to this kind of moves that Monterrey is making, because this is a player that you want to feature pretty much constantly. I mean, who else are you going to call? You're not going to call Omar Campos. You're not going to call Jonathan Gomez. I don't think he's going to call Jonathan Gomez. I don't think he's going to call Jesus Angulo. He's probably going to call Kevin Alvarez. But Kevin Alvarez, as you mentioned, he's primarily a right back. He's not a left back. Even though I think those positions are interchangeable, right? You don't really need to be a left. Left-footed player to play
Right.
as a left back, right?
Mhm.
But that's my thing. It's like I'm not trying to say that they should get rid of Jesus Gallardo right now. What I'm trying to say is we have time, plenty of time, to start prepping for that specific moment where we start noticing the decay of Gallardo as a great performer for eltri.
Yeah, and that time's going to go by quickly.
Yes,
We say we got time, but 2026 and the Copa America is right around the corner.
exactly.
And
Mhm.
the third point that you kind of mentioned that I brought that kind of little light bulb here for me. We mentioned Jonathan Gomez, Jogo. If you're Jonathan Gomez at this point, wouldn't you be more attracted to joining El Tri, knowing that they have all this lack of talent there in that position, lack of talent in Europe, and you'll probably be guaranteed more time here for El Tri than behind Jedi Robinson?
I 100% agree with you, man. I think he has a steeper challenge at the USMNT, trying to find his way into the I guess the A team, rather than finding his way to the Mexico's A team. Like, there's just if he continues to be an up and coming talent in Europe, right? Even if he stays at a low, I guess mid low table team in Spain, or a middle of the table team in Portugal, Italy, wherever you want, right? I think that's way better for him in keeping himself fresh in the eyes of eltri and Doña Fede than trying to compete against Anthony Robinson. Who else do you have on the left back for the USMNT that is ahead of him?
I mean, Scally plays there sometimes as well.
I mean, dude, you have a plethora of players who can just pick up that position, right? If Anthony Robinson goes down with an injury, there's at least three players ahead of Jonathan Gomez who can take that role. And I mean, I would even go as far as to say that maybe Triple G will prefer an MLS left back over Jonathan Gomez just because he plays in La Liga Dos.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. It's definitely time to kind of start talking about this. At least start mentioning it as Gallardo gets older and Arteaga maybe finds minutes. Limited his first season or two at Monterrey, playing second fiddle to Gallardo. Um, Adrian, man, as we wrap up this episode, brother, where can our listeners find us, dude?
They can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast on. Last but not least, you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Puro Pinche Gol. We post stuff every now and then.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on your preferred social media platform of choice, and let us know in the comments below. We definitely like interacting with you guys and reading y'all's comments. Are you Team Adrian or Team Adrian here? Are you as worried as Adrian is about this left back position, or are you more optimistic like I am, thinking that there is youth coming up through the ranks? We just haven't got to the point where they're playing at the highest level. Adrian seems to be very flustered about this and doesn't have much faith in that position going
I
forward.
can't
But
sleep, dude.
let us know, but down in the comments below, definitely. Do you think this is something that eltri and Jimmy need to worry about, and who would you like to be given the chance here for left back for Mexico? There, man. Yeah, another good episode with your brother. The January transfer window is pretty much closed everywhere except for a few markets now. So I think our next episode here, we're going to be discussing the big elephant in the room, all the Mexico eltri players that came back to Mexico, to ligamx. We'll be kind of doing a deep dive on that analysis. So make sure to stick with us here on PPG, and I'll see you in the next one, brother.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Likewise, man. See ya.
Deuce.